is up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Odds and Ends. Today, we're going to tear down and clean out a SEGA Genesis Model 2 and a Genesis controller. Hope you enjoy. All right, guys, here we go. We got the SEGA Genesis Model 2 here. Very awesome console. It works, but we're going to do another cleaning video. As you can see, it's very dirty in there. And then, as with these Genesis, the Genesi, they've got a lot of nooks and crannies and stuff on their face, so all that stuff needs to be cleaned. Console does work. It works great. Like I said, it's just dirty. One of the easier consoles to take apart, in my opinion. All you're going to need, just get yourself a couple Phillips head screwdrivers, and you're going to be good to go. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is turn it over. And yeah, there's 4 screws, 1 on each corner. There's 2 there, and then 2 down here. So you just take those screws out. And we'll do what we do with any of the cartridge-based consoles. Now we're just going to separate the top part from the bottom part. So let's take off the top part here. There's the bottom part. We'll get to that. All right. So the top part, we're going to flip that over. And as you can see, the bottom of the cartridge slot, there's 3 screws here. I've already kind of pre-disassembled this a little bit, just to kind of make the video go by a little bit faster. But yeah, so get that screw out of there. All right, so get that screw out. Once you take all 3 of them out, the cartridge slot assembly all comes out as one piece. We'll just wash that as it is, not a big deal. Moving on down. Here's where the light shines through. You get the power going to your SEGA Genesis. That just pops right off. No big deal there. And then your power button and your reset button. They actually have these little nodules here on the side, right there and right there. And all you do is you just squeeze those together and pop it through. So squeeze those together. And then you might need to get a smaller screwdriver to kind of pop that through. Not a big deal there. That one out. Easy enough. Turn it over, and there we go. That thing is ready to be washed. There's our buttons. Make sure we scrub those. All right. So slide over. Let me get that light out of there. All right. So we'll slide over to the bottom part of the console. Now there's a heat shielding on here, and then there's just screws. You just follow them around the sides and around the top and the side. Pretty standard stuff. The heat shielding should then just pop right off. I washed the shielding and let it dry really well. Now you'll notice that the cartridge slot has 2 screws on both sides, or 2 screws, 1 on each side. There's 1 there, and then 1 right there. Now these screws are a little bit longer than the other screws. All the other screws are pretty much the same, I think. So yeah, there's kind of a size comparison. All right, so what we're looking at here. All right, so the long one is for the cartridge slots. The small one in the middle is for the heat shielding, and then the middle size one, there's 4 of those for the bottom. So that's kind of how the screws are laid out. All right, so once you've taken these screws out, you can now remove the board. So the board just comes out like so. Yeah. There we go. We will now remove the cartridge slot cover thing for the SEGA CD, and we'll put the board in a safe place. We'll clean off the board. What I do is I'll use like a rubbing alcohol, and I'll just kind of go across the board, getting all the excess dust and stuff like that. All right, so after we've taken the board out, there's this bracket here. This thing just pops off, and as you can see, this thing is so dirty that it's worn a mark in there. But yeah, that only goes on one way, so you should be able to figure out how that goes back on. And then the bottom shielding here doesn't have any screws in it. It just comes right off. And lastly, we're just going to remove the SEGA CD cartridge slot cover, I guess. We can get that off of there. It's kind of hard to do one-handed. Hooray! Got it. Had to give it the old body English, but that'll come off and we'll wash that. And yeah, we look inside there. We can see how dirty that is. There we go. These things get pretty nasty. You guys know that. But you know, when I sell a console, I like to clean it out as best I can, you know, because it's got like, you can see like dog hair and stuff in there. And you don't want to sell a console to somebody, you know, maybe they're allergic to animals or they've got kids that are allergic to animals. So, all right, we will grab a controller and let's take a controller apart because we're going to sell this all as one kind of bundle. So let me clean this up and I'll grab a controller. All right, so here we go. Here's the Genesis controller. Very, very simple and easy to take apart. Just turn it over. There's 6 screws on the back. Take out those screws. They're real tiny, so make sure that you don't lose them or strip them. And then the back plate just comes off. There's nothing else in there, so that's washable. Just grab the cord from the connector point right there, and then the board should come off without any issues. Now on these boards, I usually go over these touchpad areas with like Windex and a Q-tip or rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip. Just kind of depends on what I have on hand at the time. So we'll definitely take care of that and clean that off. All right, so we get in the back of here. It's basically your standard controller setup. You've got these little rubber touchpad thingies that connect to the board on the back of the buttons. We'll take all those off, and then we've got the buttons here. Now they only go in one way, so can't really screw that up. And then on the back of the D-pad here, we've got another connector pad. You want to make sure you clean in here, and then I kind of poke these through a little bit, and then clean all in there. So make sure you do that. This is one part of the SEGA Genesis controller that might throw people off. You can basically turn this over and the buttons fall out, but you'll notice that the D-pad stays in there. And the reason is because there's a cap on it. You see where these 4 little bumps are? Well, that's kind of a cap that goes on there. So you actually might need a flathead screwdriver for this one, but you just get in between there and pop that bad boy right off, just like that. And now your D-pad should come out. It doesn't actually go out of the back. It comes off of the front. So, and there we go. That's how we take that apart. We'll get it cleaned, and then we will get this thing back together. All right, so we got the controller washed. You can see it looks a lot better. It's not as dirty. I went ahead and put the D-pad back in there. Reason is this little piece has to go in a certain way, and it kind of requires 2 hands. So we went in and put that in there. All right, so throw in the start button, put the rubber over the D-pad, and we just kind of look. That one says B, so we know B is in the middle. That one is A, and that one is C. So we just drop those right in there, and then throw the little tabs on the back, like so. No big deal there. And then we clean the board. I know it probably doesn't look a whole lot different, but believe me, there was some dirt and stuff on there, and definitely want to get all that out of there. That thing just slides right on there, like so. And then don't forget to put the piece back in there and put the back on. So we'll get that in there. We'll put the back on. We'll get the screws in it, and yeah, we'll be done. All right, guys. So we got the board back in there. We got the screws back in there. So our SEGA Genesis controller has been reassembled and put back together. We're actually going to slide this over to the side, and we're going to wipe this down with some WD-40 to give it extra gloss. So we'll do that after we put the console back together. So let's get started on that console. All right, so we're going to start with the top part of the console. As you can see, it's a lot cleaner in there. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to grab the reset button, and we're just going to put that in its little home there. Oop. Put that in there, and then just push down, and it'll snap right into place. Grab the power button. We'll do the same thing. Just get it in there. Snaps right into place. Turn it over. We'll grab our light thing here, and we'll just put that right back into place. That one just snaps into place, which is nice. All right, so we're going to grab our cartridge slot assembly, put that in there. It should just snap right down, and then Yep, just screw down the screws. And put the last screw in there. Alright, I'll tighten that one down. And there we go. Top part of the console is reassembled. Let's grab the bottom. Alright, so here we have the back of the Genesis, all nice and clean, ready to go. First thing we need to do is put in the bottom shielding. That just slides right in there. All this stuff just kind of fits together. You don't have to force anything. It doesn't really snap in there or anything like that. Alright, so next thing we gotta do, we gotta put this bracket on there. You'll see these two little posts. They kind of stick up a little bit past the bracket or past the shielding, and on the bottom of the bracket, there's actually little holes on both ends, and those just cover up like so. Very easy. And now we're ready to put the board in. So we just slide the board in there, like so. Again, just fits nice and snug. And then the next thing we need to do, take your two longer screws. Screw them in each side of the cartridge slot here on both sides. And then we'll be ready to put the top heat shielding on. Alright, so we get the top heat shielding on and we put all the screws back in there. It's not very difficult, you just kind of follow around. Next thing that we need to do, we're almost done. Throw the top back on the SEGA Genesis Model 2. Put the screws in the back, and then put the Sega CD cover on the Sega CD port cover thingy. So, all right, we'll do that, and then we're going to put some WD-40 on it, and we are going to make this thing shine. All right, so you can see we got our Genesis Model 2 back together, and we got our controller back together, but we really want to make these things shine. So what I do is I get a little WD-40. Pledge would also work if you had Pledge. Take a paper towel, kind of put some on the paper towel, and then kind of blot it a little bit, because if you don't, it'll leave streaks. And then just take that and rub it on the console, and you can see sort of the difference it makes. It's nice and glossy. Pledge is probably better, but like I said, I didn't have any. So we just go around the edges of the console, just to kind of keep this video short. You want to do the sides and the back and everything else, so I'll get to that. But yeah, so then we're going to do the same thing with the controller. And we're going to give it that really nice, kind of fresh out of the package look. Oh man, very nice, shiny. Rah, get in there. And then all we got to do is we just got to let that dry. So yeah, it looks almost like a brand new Genesis controller, nice and glossy. And then here's a console again. Very nice and glossy. We'll let that dry, and then we'll hit up the sides and the back. So guys, that is it. That is the SEGA Genesis Model 2 teardown and cleaning. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.